Washington Commanders 20, New Orleans Saints 19. Commanders moved to 9-5. Saints fall to 5-9. Kind of a miracle that it got to this point. Washington up early. They were up 17-0. Spencer Rattler came in and, kind of led the comeback here for the Saints. And it all came down to they tied up. There was controversy at the end, first off with the clock. But the Saints,
this game,
touchdown to get within one. And then you're calling it a drop anyway. The 2-point conversion.
Should have caught it.
Spencer Rattler throws an absolute laser beam off Juwan Johnson's hands. Call it a drop or whatever. But that
off his hands. I mean, off his hands sort of suggests he could have caught it.
I would say through his hands at 100 miles an hour. But anyway, it was 2-point conversion, falls incomplete to would have won the game, obviously, and Commanders get the 1-point win here.
I mean, it's still to be reviewed, but our friends at PFF currently have that in as a – like I'm some sort of outlier lunatic by saying that's a drop.
All I'm saying is it was a laser beam.
This pass, this win, this game, had it ended with a catch on that play, would have been the most QAnon conspiracy theorist, the NFL's rigged, the script is out game in NFL history. Because
it already is because of the spread.
Yeah, but because the right team won effectively at the end, it's like, okay, we can brush that under the rug. Had that actually been a Saints win, because what happened is, so the Saints are executing this last drive to try and get to tie the game, we think, but they end up going for 2 for the win. They get a play, and then they got to get up, spike the ball, so they can have one shot at the end zone. With 9 seconds left when they complete the last play, and then the clock mysteriously stops for about 3 seconds, which is quite important when you only have 9 seconds to play with and you have to spike the ball. And apparently that was not supposed to happen, And Sean Hockley, the official after the game, was like, yeah, the clock operator just randomly stopped the clock by mistake, and we have no way of addressing that effectively in the rules. So basically, the Saints were bought an extra 3 seconds by the clock operator on that final drive, which allows them to stop the clock, which they then scored the touchdown, and they then missed that 2-point conversion for the win.
It essentially allowed for the cover. The one thing I would say is...
But we have no way of knowing. So had that, effectively, they should have had about 3 seconds less to work with at that final important play. We don't know whether they would have been able to spike the ball if they'd had only 6 seconds as opposed to 9. It's possible, but
it felt like
really
the Saints, tight. Because they're watching the clock. It felt like they could have spiked it in time anyway when I was watching.
Right.
It wasn't this...
But 6 seconds between play end and play start.
Yes, there was a sense of urgency, but it wasn't at a frenetic pace. It felt like the Saints, if they had the clock running in front of them and it said 3 seconds, 2 seconds instead of 4 or 5, they would have spiked it a little bit sooner. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, it might be okay, but it's still a bad mistake.
I mean, for example, that last play, right, never mind. Scratch that. I was going to say something stupid.
Scratch all of it.
Yeah.
The Commanders were up 17-0. Rattler came in the second half, sparked the Saints, made some big plays. I mean, the usual Rattler type of stuff, chucking it into tight coverage to MVS for 30 yards, and he actually should have thrown. And we were talking about it was just still a 10-point game with about 7 minutes left.
Yeah.
In the fourth quarter, throws one that probably should have ended the game right in Frankie Louvu's hands. Like the Saints also had a little bit of luck to get to this point. And then on the other side, Jaden Daniels sacked 8 times, and to me, it was one of those Jaden Daniels games where high completion percentage from early in the season, 25 of 31 for 226. But the difference, and he had 11 carries for 66. But the difference in this one is just too many negative plays, and that is a big part of what got the Saints back in this game was just killing drives for Washington, and it didn't feel like awful pass protection from the Commanders. It was a lot of Jaden Daniels pocket movement, holding the ball, coverage sacks, not seeing things that led to the 8.
See, this is the game where the nerds love this game. This is the game that encapsulates why the nerds focus on things like sack rate, because when you look at what he was doing, I actually think Jaden Daniels played really well throwing and running the football, right? So if you just focus on when he's taking off, when he's carrying the ball, when he's putting it in the air, I think Daniels actually played really well. His touchdown, one of his touchdowns to Terry McLaurin. He's sort of running to the left, fires the ball into just a crowd. McLaurin just goes in there, says, mine, snags it out of the air.
Lamar touchdown a few weeks ago. I don't know who it's to, but it got there.
Right. That was really good. They went for it on 4th and 1 late in the game when they're trying to chew the clock. It was a weird call, right? It was like a read option play from a pistol formation on 4th and 1. So, everything you're doing here is 5 yards deep in the backfield. On 4th and 1, he kind of kept the ball on the read option and was dead. I mean, the defense had it pretty well shut down, and Daniels just decides, okay, I've got it, leaps over the mess for a first down. He was making the plays, but there were so many of those hidden, quote unquote, negative plays with the sacks that are kind of on him, right? So this is why when everyone was focusing pre-draft on, but look, this guy's got a terrible pressure to sack rate, that's a problem. Okay, evidently it hasn't been a problem for a lot of the season, and that's potentially a thing he can change and work on. But this is the game that you would use to highlight why people care about that, right? In abstract terms, you're like, well, if the guy can throw the ball well and run the ball well, who really cares if he takes a few sacks? This is why. Because in a game like this, he can throw the ball well, he can run the ball well, but if he takes 7 or 8 sacks, it suddenly becomes a tight game when it really shouldn't have been. Washington should have had this game locked away well before the 4th quarter.
To be fair on a couple of them, so out of the 8, 2 of them were for 0 yards.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, you run out of the bounds at 0 yards, and they either give you a short gain or a short loss, and it's 0 yards, but it's a sack. So those 2, but he could have thrown them away. If they're throwaways, so then it's only 6 sacks. But the difference early in the year when I was describing Jaden Daniels' game, how many times did I say he's not missing throws, but if the throw's not there, he's scrambling and picking up, positive yardage, and he's not in the sack. He had games where he was sacked 3 or 4 times, but he just wasn't taking those negative plays. And this one, it felt like almost every sack was from an initially clean pocket. If the first read was there, he's getting rid of it. So the pass protection overall in the game was okay. But it certainly wasn't they had 8 sacks. This is a terrible job by the offensive line. It was a lot of Daniels. I don't think seeing the field as well, not manipulating the pocket, stepping into some negative plays, and just something to keep an eye on down the stretch here. Like you said, threw the ball well, ran it well, but these plays, stood out quite a bit.
Are you sad that Jake Haener doesn't appear to be very good because he's quite a meme-friendly quarterback with his photo shoots and stuff? I think it would be kind of fun if it was good.
Yeah, it'd be nice if he can get another opportunity.
This was 17-0, by the way, mid Q3. Midway through the 3rd quarter, this was a 17-0 game. Yeah. And then because
it's annoying
Washington
because
didn't put it away.
Trying to watch all 7, your mind, look, I looked away for a little bit.
I mean, everyone wants a good game, but definitely when you're trying to keep track of 16 of them in a weekend, there's something to be said for just a total blowout. Game you don't need to pay attention to anymore.
Yeah, Cedric Wilson to Alvin Kamara is the thing that turned it around. Trick play, Cedric Wilson throwback to Alvin Kamara, and that was what got the Saints on the board initially. So was it Spencer Rattler or was it Cedric Wilson who really led the comeback? Anyway.
Cedric Wilson led the comeback.
So good job by the Commanders, at least coming away with the win, even if there was a little bit of luck at the end. They needed it to get to the 9 wins.
And as we said on the instant reaction show last night, this would have been a bad game to drop from Washington's perspective. They're in that wild card spot right now, but a loss here would have been very damaging to that wild card prospect.
Sure would have. Needed it. So the Saints are looking at just pick 10 right now. As of today, pick number 10.
For a team that's presumably moving on from Derek Carr, even though that's not official yet, right?
I mean, again, they're another team that's what's the alternative?
Well, this is where people like Sam Darnold are going to make bank, right? Because whether the Vikings bring him back or not, there's a bunch of teams out there all of a sudden that are going to be interested in Sam Darnold, which, by the way, you reverse that 12 months. Darnold signs a 1-year, $10 million throwaway deal as a bridge quarterback. I think next year he's the answer to half the teams in the league.
I think instead you're going to get more teams saying, give me, because Baker Mayfield was $5 million or whatever last year, and Darnold's $10 million this year, and Geno Smith.
You think they're going to be looking for this year's Sam Darnold?
I believe
Who is that?
Trade for Zach Wilson. And I'm not saying you're going all in, but I think there's There's this middle ground between superstar quarterbacks, drafting quarterbacks, overpaying a Derek Carr, and trying to figure out who the league trends, man. I'm just telling you, there's going to be more bridge quarterback money thrown around where somebody's saying, hey, I can fix this guy.
Who even is the sort of throwaway part-time starting bridge quarterback option this year?
Not Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's already had success elsewhere. Like
Malik
the Donald
Willis?
one came out of
Malik
nowhere.
Willis?
Malik Willis,
Based
maybe?
off his 2-game performance?
Could be.
Hendon Hooker?
Kirk Cousins.
It's got to be people like that, right? The guys that have been sort of sitting on rosters for a while but haven't actually gotten the shot. Hendon Hooker, maybe Justin Fields. Somebody wants to roll the dice on that.
I mean, that's the other. I mean, the Steelers did this too, right? They did. Let's just low investment at the quarterback position. Let's take 2 shots and hope that one works out. And I'd say 1.5 have worked out. Russell Wilson and
1.5
and early Justin Fields. All right, we got to move on though.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.